Welcome to Viewpoints, brought to you by Equiture, the leading provider of public safety software and training. My name is Sherry Bartram, and I will be your host today. A little bit about us before we get started. We are an international leader in public safety training and technology with products geared toward providing tools to help responders stay safe and educated. For those of you who are new, we also offer these monthly podcasts with a variety of guests geared toward public safety topics, as well as monthly webinars and a diverse offering of training courses. Today on our show, we are talking with Doug Showalter. He is the CEO of Showalter and Company. Doug has over 3 decades of experience in public safety communications, including 20 years of various leadership positions held throughout the state of California. In his career, Doug developed new techniques and procedures for recruitment and training, as well as he designed several specifically targeted training courses for public safety. And on a national level, Doug brings genuine public service experiences to the forefront, coupling it with a powerful message of support, positivity, and motivation. And Doug, it's great to have you on our show again.
Thank you very much for having me back. Yay!
Yay!
What an intro! I got a real lot to live up to.
Well, we're just honored to have you here.
Well, thank you.
The last time we talked to you on the show, we discussed training methods, and you and your lovely wife Jill were able to talk to us about the unique training techniques you use and you teach, and how this can be enjoyable instead of I got to train.
Yeah.
And I love your mission statement on your website where it says, in part, we've all been given the chance to make a difference, and every day offers us numerous opportunities to build our own lasting legacy. I love that. What I like about that is, besides the fact that making a difference is what has driven me personally throughout my whole career, you incorporate your training methods into your mission statement. So I think that's great. And
we
for
definitely,
our guest, yes.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Tell me.
I was just going to say, I mean, that's been our motto since we developed our company. And even before that, when I was working for the Highway Patrol, was I just don't think a lot of people realize the impact that they have on the public and things like that. They just kind of take it. It's another phone call, another deal, instead of thinking, wow, that's somebody's family that I've just made their life just a little bit better by what I do. And it's just such a powerful statement to me. That's why I talk about it in every single class. So,
well, I'm going to talk to you right now, but I've got more to say, but I have to comment on that. I think, when we talk about, when people say, I just want to make a difference, they think about the big things, they want to save the life. But I think, like you were just saying, I think a lot of people miss the point that they are literally making a difference, or they could impact someone's life every time they answer that phone. So that's so powerful.
In fact, I talk about what makes a true leader is taking away all the high school, I don't like you, you don't like me. Because if you're working next to somebody that you don't really like, but they just took a very difficult call, a true sign of leadership is to say, hey, man, are you okay? Are you all right? Just having that empathy to say, you know what, this job is tough. And we sometimes do get calls that are terrible. And we have to be able to say, put aside all the kid stuff and say, you know what, you're a human and you look like that was a very tough call. And it's important we talk about these things. So I think just making that difference on one little level like that is a powerful statement. It's very powerful.
I agree. And I brought that up for our guests. The reason I bring it up is that leadership in a PSAP, or really wherever you are in life, is important. To be a good leader, you should be a good follower. That's a topic that we're not going to touch on today, but it's pretty big in itself.
That's a big one.
So being a good leader can set the whole tone for an organization.
Yeah.
And before I was promoted the first time, I tried to operate under the philosophy of being a leader before you get that title. kind of, Doug, what you just said,
Sure.
you know, if
Yeah.
you're sitting next to someone who had just had a bad call, you know, you help them out whether you have that title or not.
Right. I think that's very powerful when you have somebody who understands the implications of somebody had a really tough incident, call, radio traffic, whatever it is, or maybe they're going through a divorce and they're having difficulty at work, and you can just see it in somebody that they're just at the end right there. They're just very upset. It's having that ability to say, "Hey, are you all right?" Because I don't have to be a supervisor or a manager or whatever the heck I want to be. Just being a human counts. And it's like some people forget that and they think, "Oh, well, I'll let somebody else handle that." Wait a minute. We're professionals in the business of service. Shouldn't we do that?
Right. Right.
It's kind of crazy to me. It's like it just seems like such a natural thing to reach down and say, "Are you all right?" I mean, it's like you look tough today. And it's like I think that's been my whole career that I've had that ability to kind of see it in somebody and say, "Wow, I mean, are you going through something? What happened?" Because I noticed on the phone calls you're not yourself, and it's like they want to tell you, and sometimes they just don't know how to tell you. And it's kind of like callers, the same basic principles. It's like you can see it in people's faces, like, "Are you okay? Because you look real sad, or you look like you're upset, or something." And man, I'll tell you what, sometimes you get people that just they need that kind of thing, and you can feel it in them, like, "Thank God somebody's asked me."
Yeah.
You know?
They just
Yeah,
wanted to tell somebody.
yeah. It's crazy. It's just sad. I mean, I think leadership is built on that. I mean, I think that's kind of the key to this whole thing. I mean, I know people, and you do too, that are in leadership positions that shouldn't be. We all know
Well,
that. Every time I ask a class that, you'll just see people going, they all know people. They're all like, "Oh my God." And
right.
it's just unfortunate that sometimes we throw people into leadership positions without that foundation, without that kind of like, here's what it means to be a leader, not title, not I'm going to enforce rules. It's about being a person and a human. You know, I mean,
Right.
one of the biggest things I listen to a lot, and I do a lot of research in the private sector, and I bring that private sector stuff into dispatch centers. And one of the things I listen to is Brene Brown. Do you know who that is?
No.
Brene Brown, she's a great speaker. She's got a TED Talk. It's one of the most listened to TED Talks out there. But her name is Brene. It's Brene with a little thing next to it at the last E, Brown. And it's like she talks about the importance of leadership used to be about muscle. I'm in charge. I'm the one. Then it became about smarts. I'm really smart. That's why I'm in a leader position. In the future, it's going to transition into heart because people need to work for somebody that they know has their best interest at heart. And I'm like, damn it, that's cool. I mean, when I heard her say that, I'm like, that makes total sense because I don't want to be a dictator. I don't want to be somebody that, well, the book says we got to do it this way. I want to be that person that says, "Hey, you know what? Let's do it this way. And here's why we're doing it this way. And let's talk about why we're doing it that way." I've always been like that. And it's just when I hear her talk about these things, it just, if you get a chance, listen to her, take a listen. It's good stuff.
I will. I believe our workforce has probably changed as well. You know, when I first started, the leaders were very different than, not that they were bad. I had some really great supervisors, but, you know, the philosophy was like what you just said. I'm the leader.
And there's still people like that. I mean, I worked with somebody not too long ago, maybe like 10 years ago or so, that every time I would ask this person, "Hey, we need to go out and help out on the floor. They're short. They're getting hammered out there." He would always tell me, "Doug, I promoted for a reason. I'm not doing that no more." And I'm like, you promoted for the wrong reasons then,
Right.
because once I became his boss, then things changed. It was like, there is no more asking you to go out on the floor. You're going out on the floor. And it's like, to me, it's like people think I've got this title and I can just sit back on that. I mean, get a shirt that says your title's name and just point to it all the time. I mean, it's crazy. It's like, that doesn't make you a leader. That doesn't even make you a manager or a boss. It makes you a jerk. It's like,
Yeah. I used to watch one of my bosses and say, "Hey, I want her job," because she was sitting there and of this. So this is a long time ago when Minesweeper was one of the
Oh,
big
wow.
computer games. Some
Yeah.
of our audience won't even know what that is. You Google
Nope.
it.
Yeah.
And she'd play Minesweeper and Solitaire, and she'd leave for extended lunch breaks so she could get her dog's fingernails painted. And
Oh my goodness.
I'm like, well, that looks like fun.
Yeah.
But then, when I did get the promotion, it was, that's not what I wanted. So
Yeah. I think a lot of times people have that, because I know when I promoted back to Los Angeles, when I left, I came back as a supervisor. I was on graveyard with two very senior supervisors who told me on a constant basis, don't rock the boat, don't cause any trouble, stay in the office. And I'm like, that doesn't sound like my job. I'm like, but they were just told that, they're just beat down to where they were just like, I'm not going to enforce anything. Why should I bother? And I'm like, it's just sad when you see people like that could be a good supervisor or leader, whatever, but they've just been not supported, not, encouraged to learn more things or do something else. It's just sad. You can kind of see it in people's faces that they're beat up. They don't want to be a boss anymore.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, you've stated that many people believe that leadership is a noun based on someone's life, but true leadership should be considered a verb based on someone's actions. So I know we've kind of talked about that. Can you unpack that a little bit more for us?
And I'll give credit to where credit's due. That came from Walt Disney. My ex-wife is a Disneyland manager, and she used to come back with these books all the time with her training stuff in it, because they do a lot of training at Disneyland. And so I was reading these books, and I saw that quote in there from him that leadership should be considered a verb, not a noun. It should be based on your actions. What you do, that makes you a leader, not what your title is. And when I read that, and I read what he was talking about, it made complete sense to me, because I worked for a captain one time that this guy, everywhere we went, he introduced himself. If he's street clothes or not, I'm Captain somebody. I'm Captain somebody. And I'm going, hey, I'm Doug, whatever. I don't ever say my title. I'm just like, I'm Doug. He was so fixated on his title that he really wasn't a very good captain. He was just stuck on that. And I'm like, when I looked at him, I thought that's perfect to what Disney's talking about. He's got the title, but he does not have the verbs. He's not doing anything in that good position he's got, that he's not using it to make a better center or talk to people or whatever. He didn't even want to talk to people. I mean, I would always be, one of my other captains told me, he said, you're like a psychologist, because you always have people sitting in the dang office. And I'm like, they trust me. They'll come in and tell me stuff. And I learn so many things about what's going on in their life. If I see them not performing up to standards, I bet I can tell you why. I bet I can tell you what's going on. And it's like, it's just sometimes, I just love that philosophy from Disney, because his whole thing was about finding new leaders and watching people, what they do. And it doesn't matter how long they've been on or what their actual position is. It's watching what they actually do. And that's what makes leaders. And when he talks about it in that one book I was reading, it's really cool, because he's talking about people that can, they can find people like them. If you're passionate, you'll find somebody passionate, and you have to encourage them to take into a leadership role, no matter how long they've been on, because you want that person that's got that inside thing where they can say, I've got power. I can say something like that. So that's a big one to me. I know every time I talk about that in classes, I'm always telling people, this should be on a wall in every place. It should be up on a wall saying leadership is not a noun. It's a verb. It's based on your actions, not based on title alone. So I'm always telling people that needs to be everywhere.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah. It's such an easy thing to do, and to have Walt Disney come up with this thing and talk about it.
Yeah, my mom retired from Disney World.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So she, I heard a lot of things about Disney also. They were very good, in the beginning. I don't know now, but
yeah,
the business philosophy and customer service and.
Well, she was a Main Street manager, my ex-wife was. And so the books that she would bring home are all about like how to do these things, but not just here's how to do it. It was here's why we're doing it this way. We want the guests to feel like they're in a magical place and all these things. And it's like, You know, I'm going, for Disney, that worked at that time. I mean, you could have, it's kind of like this. Here's an example. Target. People that work at Target. Okay, these are usually kids, young people, but Target has this, every day they start their shift with a little, like, they get everybody around, all the employees get around each other, and they go say, hey, here's what's going to be. It's going to be a great day. It's going to do these things. Go Target. And they all say, go Target. I'm going, okay, if you can get kids to do that, why the hell can't we get a comm center to do such a thing? I can't even imagine telling people in a comm center, hey, it's going to be a great day today. Here's what we're going to do. Go highway patrol or whatever. And it's like, but I see got these kids doing it, and I'm going, how the hell do they motivate these kids to do that? I mean, I think that's such a powerful statement. That's why I do so much research in the private sector, because they're doing things that we should be doing in our place, but we think, oh, we're different. We're so different. We're really not.
Yeah. We're really not. And I'm not here to promote this at all, but the book that I wrote, a lot of the research I did for it was in the public sector, because they do things that, many of the bigger corporations do things that really work well, and we could easily do those in the PSAP.
It's just to me, it's like, I was reading a thing from GM. When the new CEO took over GM several years ago, Mary Berry, she actually reduced the size of their manuals on how to act at work or whatever. They had a 5-page manual on dress code. She reduced that down to dress appropriately. And she said, if you can't figure out what appropriate means, I don't know if you can work here or not. I don't know if you can understand what our philosophy actually is. And I'm going, how many people have dress codes that are insane? And they're so big. And she just said, if I can't trust you to make a decision on dress code and know what's appropriate, then I really don't know what kind of decisions else you can make. And I'm like, damn, that's pretty cool that she's putting that trust in the people. And I did the same kind of thing when I did the manuals for the department. A lot of times I put in there shoulds, not shalls, because I wanted that dispatcher to make a decision. Make a decision based on your training, experience, knowledge, known facts, and do that. And it's like, a lot of people are like, well, I don't like it. I want to be I can just say, that's our policy. I got to do that. And I'm like, wait, no, you don't. You can make a decision, man. There's all kinds of things out there to make a decision about. So yeah, that's it. And that's what's so fun. And you know it too, using these outside business acumens to say that could work in a comm center.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's like, that would be great in a comm center. Right.
You see that. It's just unfortunate that a lot of people think that, no, that's not how comm centers operate. We've always done it this way.
Yes. I was just going to say that. That's the way we've always done it. We have to keep doing it that way.
Yeah.
When I started at my first PSAP, when I moved to Michigan, I had a sign, with a red line, the way we've always done it. And the circle with a red line through it. Yeah. Because things were changing, and, I just wanted everybody to know that we were going to change if we needed to.
Yeah. And that's the thing about leadership when it comes to change, because look at the way the dispatch world is right now. The technology is unbelievable. When I started, we didn't have caller ID. I mean, it was like, now they have all of these things and I'm going, my God, good leaders should be researching this stuff before you get it. Going to a conference and getting the information from the vendors going, hey, we're going to get video or pictures or whatever it might be. And a lot of times people are just behind the 8 ball. They wait for the technology to come to them instead of going and find it. And I'm always telling people, good leaders will go out and find this stuff. If they hear some agency's got it, contact them directly and say, hey, what's working? What's not? What should we know about it if we get this? And then you'll be that go-to person for your agency, which is always such an easy thing to do.
Right.
But it's just funny because you hear people that are like, well, I'm waiting for our management to do something about it. Why? You can't, you can do it.
Well, sometimes they can't, but that really brings up my next question. When I was a young dispatcher, I aspired to be a supervisor by the time I was in my early 20s because, well, I thought it would be fun, and I thought I could do some really cool things in the PSAP based on my really actually pretty limited experience at that time. However, I had no clue what I needed to do to get there. So what would you tell someone who was, really young in their career and, 5-10 years out from being promoted. They knew that's where they wanted to be, but they didn't know how to get there. What kind of advice would you tell them?
I talk about this kind of thing. I've talked about it before. I don't know if I did it before in this setting, but I always ascribe to people about, I hate to date myself, but back in the good old days, Coke bottles, glass ones, used to have at the bottom, no deposit, no return. To me, I take that as, what deposits am I making in my career to get a great return out of it? Well, a lot of people say, well, I don't, they're not going to train us on this stuff. Then that's where you go find it. There are so many books, magazines, conferences, podcasts, YouTube, so many things on leadership and being a successful leader and all these things. It's all out there. It's just waiting for you to grab it and say, let me read this stuff. That's why if you look at my bookshelf, well, it's on the other side. You look at my bookshelf, it's loaded with these books because there's so much research to be done that a lot of people just wait for somebody else to give it to them. And I say, no, invest in yourself, because that's the best investment you'll ever make, is getting yourself ready to take a position like that. And your agency will see you investing in yourself, saying, look at, they've been really researching stuff and getting information, doing these things. That's who we want to be in a leadership role. Because I'll tell you what, baby boomers like myself, once we all have reached retirement age and we all leave, that's going to leave a huge gap in leadership. And somebody's going to take those positions. Do you want somebody who's never even thought about it to take that position? Or do you want somebody who has been researching and learning and developing themselves into a better person, a better leader? That's the person I want to take over when the other people leave.
Right. Because that's a tough learning curve.
It's big time. And especially if you wait for your own agency to provide training. So many people tell me around the country that I always ask them, what kind of training do you have prior to promoting? Or even after we're promoting? There's so many people that just on the job. That's it. Just sit with somebody. They're going to tell you that's how it is. And I'm like, that's so unfortunate that they make you wait. Where I always tell people, don't wait. Go get it. Go find some stuff out there. There's so many cool books and stuff. And we had people submitting book titles to us for a while about what books inspired them and things like that. And it was so powerful to see all these great books that are out there just waiting for somebody to look at it, listen to it. I mean, podcast, you're doing one right now that should inspire people to say, maybe I should go and research something. Maybe I should read these things. I mean, I'll tell you what, when we started our company, I was telling my wife, we'll never get a good company. I don't know how to do it. You need a lawyer. She's like, you don't. So I went and bought that stupid book, a yellow book, Building a Business for Dummies.
Oh, yeah.
And I read the book and I'm like, it doesn't look that hard to do. So it's like, and I was like, oh my God, it really isn't that hard. It's like, but I had to research it myself. I couldn't just sit back saying, that's it, we can't do it. I said, let's figure it out if we can do it or not. I mean, I thought it was way more complicated. It's really not. But it's one of those things where it's like, you have to invest in your time, in yourself. Don't just sit there staring at the ceiling going, there's 93 tiles above us. Go and find something to study and research and do these things. That's what I did before I promoted as a dispatch supervisor back in 98. God, that seems like a long time ago. Back in 98, I promoted, and it was one of those things where I'm like, I didn't just sit back and wait for somebody to promote me. I mean, I knew we had to take a test. We had to do an interview. We had to do all these things to get to be a supervisor. And I wanted to make sure I was ready for it when I did that stuff. So, it's one of those things where you got to invest.
That's fun. That's when I first became a supervisor also, was in 98.
Was it really?
It really is.
Awesome.
So I know exactly what you're talking about.
I'm like, wow, because I use a lot of references in classes. And just like you said a little while ago with that Minesweeper, I talk about, and he just died the other day, I talk about OJ when he was being escorted around town. I was at work that day. And I get so many people going, who? Who is it?
Oh.
Who is it?
Oh. I did not know he just died the other day, but I have also used him as an example. But I started asking, do you guys know who O.J. Simpson is? And I'm still getting hands, but I had one class of younger people, and they had no clue.
Yeah.
Because that whole situation was such a good learning experience for us nationwide in a PSAP. That you could learn things from if you're if you're aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing, kind of have to be, because I talk about 9/11 too. 9/11, so many people weren't even born at that point, and I'm like, oh my God, people.
Right.
I'm
But
like,
but like you said, these are our future leaders.
yeah,
We want them to learn. We want them to learn from our mistakes. We want them to understand why we've done what we've done and why it works, and maybe it'll still work. Well, Doug, I just wondered, when you talk about leaders, what do you feel the top 3 priorities should be for a leader?
yeah. I always think this is one of the most important things is having that human connection to people. Remembering that your crew out there is real people that have real feelings, real emotions. Things are happening in their private life that maybe they drag them into this life. And that whole adage of leave your problems at the door is so ridiculous that it doesn't make any sense to me, because people can't. I mean, I've fought with my spouse before and gone to work and, things happen. So it's one of those things where you have to kind of consider maybe they're not behaving themselves because there's a reason. And we need to kind of figure that out. And that's what comes with being a good supervisor or leader, because you can kind of talk to these people and figure out what's happening out there. The other thing is, I think that you need to show support. I mean, you need to kind of be there if your agency doesn't provide a lot of training, and some don't, and that's, it is what it is, then maybe you should come up with some training for your folks that's going to help them be prepared for the future, because the future is coming and the technology is not going to stop with what it is today. 5 years from now, it's probably not even going to look anywhere similar to this at all. So it's like, we'll probably just be holograms. Who knows? But it's one of those things where it's like, we have to think to ourselves, if I know technology is going to change, maybe I should start preparing my folks for that. Well, and one of the final things is that I think is so important that I have seen very little preparation for this is building resiliency in our dispatchers to handle these things. When I used to mention all the time, hey, we're going to be able to get video and pictures, and people are like, oh, hell no. I can do it on the phone, but I don't want to see it. And I'm like,
Right.
well, unfortunately, you're gonna. And it's going to happen. And we have to start talking about resiliency of how do we make people okay with seeing something horrible on the screen? I mean, they may see something really bad. I don't know. But we need to kind of make sure that we've prepared them to handle these things. I asked our officers when I was in charge of our state training program, I asked the staff up there, how do you prepare somebody to see a dead body? Like somebody who's been cut in half or a car accident or whatever. And like, we really don't spend that much time on it because we're talking about investigating the accident. How did it happen? What are the particulars of these things? And I'm like, they don't even prepare the officers for this kind of stuff. Now we're going to expect our dispatchers to handle somebody hanging on a phone with us, somebody finding their loved one. And to me, it's like we have to start building that resiliency and talking about it, at least getting the conversation rolling that, hey, this may come and we need to kind of think about this. I mean, I got a great tape I used to play in classes. I still do. It's of an officer who gets seriously injured in a car accident on the radio, on a traffic stop, gets run over basically. He's on a motorcycle. And the dispatcher's in tears on the radio. And I had to take her off the radio because it was just, I couldn't let her keep going. And when I talked to her after that, she was like, I just never thought about it. I never thought that something bad would happen. And I'm like, it's a tough job. It's a dangerous job and bad things can happen. And we need to kind of have that conversation with people to start talking about these issues. So building resiliency and supporting your staff and, remembering that they're human are 3 of the most important things that I think of in good leadership.
Oh, good. I like those priorities. So you've talked a lot about what leaders should be. Have you ever worked with someone in leadership who was good at it, but they didn't want a formal leadership position?
Yeah. In fact, I've encouraged a lot of people to take the supervisor test. And even though they'll come in my office and say, I don't want to do it, I'm not good at it, it's like I can see it in them and the reason I say that is because I had somebody do that for me. I had a lieutenant that every time I'd see her was like, I'd been on like 4 or 5 years and I was very cocky back in the day and, whatever. So it's like, so she was always like, Doug, do you want to just fight this whole thing about you complain about stuff or do you want to make changes? And I'm like, I can't make any changes. I'm one person. We have 1,350 dispatch work for the Highway Patrol. There's no way one person would make a change. So she worked with me and worked with me and worked with me and finally convinced me to take the supervisor test, which I did. I passed. I couldn't believe it. I came back to LA on a graveyard as my first night back on the job. I come back and they're showing me around the place, even though I worked there before, but they're showing me around saying, here's your office. I walked in there. There was a desk, there was a chair, and there's a phone sitting on the desk. And the phone had a little red light flashing on it. And I was like, who the hell left me a message? Because this is my first night. So I listened to the message, and who was it? It was that lieutenant. She goes, look where you're at, Doug. And I'm like, damn. So years go by, and we're still in communication. We talk periodically and stuff like that. She's still very friendly. I get offered the state of, be in charge of the state training program, to move up to Sacramento, be in charge of the whole thing. And I'm like, oh my God. So I go up there, walking around with one of the sergeants. He's showing me my office. Nobody knows I got this job yet. So I'm walking around. He's showing me, here's going to be your office. Here's the training center. And so I go into the office, desk, chair, phone, red light flashing. And I'm like, now who the hell is this? I listen to the message and it's her again going, look where you're at, Doug. And I'm like, damn you. I'm like, and to this day, we're still very good friends. And it's like, that's what I want it to be for other people. I saw that and said, that is somebody who said, when I talked to her later on, she goes, I saw something in you, Doug, and I thought you could do this. You don't think you can do it, but you can. And that's what I try to be to other people. I try to encourage them by saying, I can see it in you that you can do this kind of stuff. So that's the way I do it.
I like that. So you've talked about those promotions. How do you feel about promotions due to longevity? Well, I'm a supervisor because I was here longer than anybody else, and I'm a captain, and I'm a chief.
Wow.
What do you think?
Maybe on the uniform side they do that. I don't know. But sounds like they do. But on the dispatch side of it, I don't ever agree with that, because I know people that have been on a long, long time that basically have 31-year experiences. I mean, they never improve. They're doing the same for 1 year, doing the same thing. And in fact, here's how this really got me in some little bit of a thing. I was working at one of our comm centers. I was one of 8 supervisors. I think I was number 4 or 5 supervisor in rank in, seniority. The number 1 person had me by 10 years. I mean, she was way up there. So our captain was going to take a leave of absence. She had to go have some kind of surgery thing. So they said, we're going to make somebody acting commander while she's gone for 3 months. And they called me in the office with the chief and said, hey, we're going to put you as acting commander. And I'm like, but she's got 10 years on me. And he goes, yeah, but it's not 10 good years. So he said, you're it. And oh my goodness, that generated a lot of people getting crazy. But I think it's because they recognized that I could handle that kind of stuff. It wasn't scary or anything like that. And they knew she would probably fall apart. I mean, she just was that kind of supervisor. She was just not really, she didn't like confrontation. She didn't like talking to people. It was just, and so I think they recognized that. So no, I don't think years on make you a good supervisor. I think the way you act makes you a good supervisor or a good leader.
Right. Right. Back to what we talked about in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bringing that circling back.
In your career, when you look at your career, is there anything that you would want to do differently, earlier, or maybe a different path that you would have, could have, should have taken?
Yeah.
Anything like that?
I think everybody has regrets when they do this job. I think you kind of think, wow, I should have done that a little different or whatever. I think I've had a couple of personal things I should have probably not done. Thought of the comm center as a dating area, probably not the best idea possible out there. So not a good idea. So that was really not good. And one or two things at the very beginning of when I first started training people. I started training people at 1 year on the job, started training people. And I kind of wanted everybody to be a Stepford wife. If you know what that reference means, I wanted them to do it exactly like I did it. And I was so stuck on it. I was like, oh, no, it has to be this and this. It has to look just like that. And it was I realized later on, you don't have to do that. Everybody's got their own style. Everybody can do this stuff. So I'm kind of regretful that I trained a few people like that. And I was like, God dang, I shouldn't have done that. But they went on, they're successful. So they're still there. So, it was just one of those things. But yeah, that's a couple of my regretful things that I would change if I could. I would go back and say, not a good idea to do that kind of stuff.
I understand that. I guess if I could tell new dispatchers anything with that same question for myself, I would tell them, if you have aspirations to do something else or more, or just a desire to give back, then, take the advice that we've talked about today, get involved, because there's so many things in this line of work and this career that you can get involved at, and to just really skyrocket your career.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
you easily do that. Well, I mean, you can easily become, people always ask me like, how did you become like a national speaker or whatever? And it's like, I got some breaks, I got some issues that came up, and I kind of fell into it. And it's like, but I always tell people, if you've got a good story or a good base or whatever, you could do the same thing I'm doing. It's like, it's getting that message out there. I don't just go out and tell people like, do the job, here's how you do it. I don't do that. I mean, I'm kind of more of a inspirational kind of motivational kind of person. I can kind of motivate people to kind of do it this way. And it's like, whatever your message is, just make sure people want to hear that message.
Right. Right.
I mean, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
You have great leadership advice. Your company has offered so many people helpful training. And I know we at Equiture have enjoyed the partnership we have with you. But my last question for you is, do you have any plans to slow down, kick back, see the world?
Could you tell my wife that? Because she does all of our scheduling. And I keep telling her, I think I retired. I don't think because our schedule gets so full of stuff that the other day, like 3 weeks ago, I spent 2 days in Memphis, came home on Friday, Saturday flew to Maine, did a week there, and then flew back. And I'm like, okay, look, I can't. I am one person that does this stuff. It's difficult to keep on the road like that, a lot like that. So, I try not to take everything I could get at this point. I mean, there are some things that I'm not willing to do at this point. So, so we are very choosy nowadays of where we go and what we do. I just, sometimes people just want me there because they know who I am or whatever. And it's like, there's probably somebody with a better message. I mean, I can't go every single year to one thing. It's like, it's crazy. So, yeah, I mean, I try to slow down a little bit, but it's just, I get on this thing of where we're getting so many offers to do stuff. Like I just got offered to do an interview for this national or international, these people from Scotland. I just did a thing for them. And there's a magazine that's trying to get us to do an article for them. And it's like, I mean, those are great opportunities, and I'm not willing to pass those up. And, working with you guys too. I mean, it's great to kind of hear people when I go places go, where did I see you? I'm like, probably there. I'm probably like, well, sure. It's like, I would think so. And it's like, I just am surprised that people resonate with the message, of leave a legacy and all that other stuff. They just, I think once they hear me explain it, the leave a legacy thing, I think people kind of like, that makes sense. Oh my God, I never thought about it. So, yeah. So slowing down, probably not as much. If you tell my wife, she's going to be like, no.
Not yet.
Not yet.
I get it. Well, Doug, it has truly been a pleasure talking with you today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Thank you very kindly.
And to our public viewers out there, keep doing what you do and making a difference and seeking those opportunities out. And we're here to support you. So we hope you have a great day, and we'll see everyone later.
Bye now.
Bye.